Today I'm going to show you examples of how different types of repeat signs can be used. You may want to pause the video to play through these examples for yourself. Let's start with hot cross buns. If we want to indicate that the song should be played 2 times, instead of writing the whole song out a second time, we can just put a repeat sign at the end, which bounces us back to play from the beginning. Sometimes, like in this example of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, we can use a repeat sign with a backwards repeat sign in order to just repeat a short segment of music. The second line here repeats the same notes, so we could replace the 4 measures with 2 repeated measures like this, and we'll just stretch out that second line. If you look closely, you'll notice something else repeats in Twinkle. Since the first and last lines are identical, we could use a da capo, or DC al fine, to repeat the top line when we get done with the second line. Da capo always takes us back to the beginning, and, in this example, we play until we reach al fine, which means the end. In this example, we would play line 1, line 2 again, and then end with line 1. Now let's check out a 4-line representation of the Ode to Joy melody. Can you see any of the ways that we might be able to repeat this? Well, let's start with the 2nd and 4th lines, which are identical. Using a del segno, or DS al fine, at the end of the 3rd line, we can eliminate the 4th line completely. The DS sends us to the new sign that starts the 2nd line, and we end at the fine. Okay, let's step back to the 4-line version of the song. What else do you see that can be repeated? The first line, it's the same as the 2nd and 4th lines, except for the last measure. So, we can just use a 1st and 2nd ending, like this, to compress the first 2 lines. Just remember that you play the first ending part the first time through, but after the repeat, you skip the first ending and play the 2nd ending instead. Now that last line is still the same as the top line when it goes to the 2nd ending. That means that we can eliminate the 3rd line by putting a DC al fine at the end of the 2nd line. The key thing to remember here is that repeats are never used again, especially after a DC or a DS. So, after the DC brings us back to line 1, we will take the 2nd ending, not the 1st ending. So what if there's an ending that we want to jump to instead of stopping at the fine? Well, in a DC al coda, the DC sends us back to the beginning just like it did before. But instead of playing until we reach a fine, now we play until we reach a coda sign, which teleports us immediately to the matching coda sign at the end of the music. By the way, the al coda could also be used with a DS sign. And now it's time for one more example. Pause the video for a moment if you need to, and think about how you could use repeat signs to make a complete representation of hot cross buns in less than 4 measures. You might notice first that we can repeat the first 2 measures. Then, remember that repeats are not used again after a DC or DS. That means we can just add a DC al fine with the fine at the end of the first measure, and there you have it. Hot cross buns only needs to be 2 measures long.